Chapter 1. A Divided Nation. By the mid-19th century, the United States, with 36 states, was starkly divided. The North embraced industrial growth, relying on small-scale farming, livestock, and wheat production. The South, however, depended on plantation agriculture, particularly cotton, powered by the brutal exploitation of enslaved black people. The North viewed slavery as an economic barrier, as enslaved labor could not contribute to industrial production, and cheap slave labor discouraged the South from adopting Northern machinery. Southern plantation owners, however, insisted on preserving slavery as their economy relied on it. Chapter 2. Tensions over Western expansion. In 1850, the U.S. expanded westward, acquiring vast territories ripe for economic development. The North and South clashed over whether these lands should adopt industrial capitalism or plantation slavery, deepening their divide. Compromises, such as the Missouri Compromise of 1820 and the Compromise of 1850, temporarily balanced slave and free states, but failed to resolve the underlying conflict. Political differences also fueled tensions. The Republican Party, dominant in the North, favored centralized federal power, while the Democratic Party, strong in the South, championed states' rights. Chapter 3. The Election of 1860 and Secession. In 1860, the presidential election intensified the divide. The Republican Party, backed by industrialists, nominated Abraham Lincoln, who fiercely opposed slavery's expansion into new territories. His victory alarmed Southern states, which feared he would abolish slavery entirely. Before his inauguration, 7 Southern states seceded, forming the Confederate States of America under President Jefferson Davis. In his inaugural address, Lincoln declared secession illegal, viewing it as rebellion. No foreign nation recognized the Confederacy, isolating it diplomatically. Chapter 4. The War Begins. On April 12, 1861, at 4:30 a.m., Confederate forces under General Pierre G.T. Beauregard fired on Fort Sumter in Charleston, South Carolina, igniting the Civil War, the bloodiest conflict in U.S. history. On April 15th, Lincoln called for 75,000 volunteers to suppress the rebellion, prompting 4 more slave states to secede. On April 19th, he ordered a naval blockade of southern ports, crippling their supply lines. Both sides rapidly mobilized, with the North assembling a larger, better-equipped army, and the South relying on skilled generals and defensive tactics. Chapter 5. Early Battles and Leadership Changes. In summer 1861, Union General Irvin McDowell led 35,000 volunteers to capture the Confederate capital, Richmond, Virginia. Confederate General Thomas "Stonewall" Jackson's forces repelled them at the First Battle of Bull Run, boosting Southern morale. On July 27th, Lincoln replaced McDowell with General George B. McClellan. On March 7, 1862, McClellan's Army of the Potomac clashed with Confederate General Robert E. Lee's forces near Richmond. Lee's robust defenses thwarted the Union's Peninsula Campaign, forcing a retreat. Chapter 6. The Bloodiest Day and Emancipation. In September 1862, Lee launched an offensive into Maryland, aiming to seize the Union arsenal at Harper's Ferry. On September 17th, the Battle of Antietam became the war's deadliest day, with 23,000 soldiers killed, wounded, or missing. McClellan's forces halted Lee's advance, forcing a Confederate retreat to Virginia. The Union victory gave Lincoln the opportunity to issue the preliminary Emancipation Proclamation on September 22nd, declaring that enslaved people in Confederate territories would be freed on January 1st, 1863. This shifted the war's purpose to abolishing slavery, deterring European intervention. Chapter 7. Turning Points in 1863. On January 1st, 1863, Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation took effect, freeing enslaved African Americans in Confederate states and encouraging them to join the Union Army. In June, Lee launched a second invasion of the North, targeting Pennsylvania. Union General George Meade defeated Lee's 75,000 troops at the Battle of Gettysburg, July 1st through 3rd, a decisive Confederate loss. Simultaneously, Union General Ulysses S. Grant captured Vicksburg, Mississippi on July 4th, splitting the Confederacy and securing the Mississippi River. These victories marked a turning point for the Union. Chapter 8. Grant's Leadership and Sherman's March. On March 9th, 1864, Lincoln appointed Grant as commander of all Union armies. Grant adopted a strategy of simultaneous attacks on multiple fronts, targeting Virginia, the Confederacy's heart. Despite fierce resistance, Grant besieged Petersburg, a key Confederate supply hub, in June 1864. Meanwhile, General William Tecumseh Sherman captured Atlanta on September 2nd, 1864, a victory that bolstered Lincoln's re-election campaign. After burning Atlanta, Sherman's 62,000 troops marched to Savannah, Georgia, devastating Confederate infrastructure in the March to the Sea, completed by December. Chapter 9. The Confederacy's Fall and Legacy. On April 2nd, 1865, Grant's forces breached Lee's defenses at Petersburg, forcing Lee to abandon Richmond. Pursued by Union troops, Lee surrendered to Grant at Appomattox Courthouse, Virginia, on April 9, 1865, ending the Civil War. The conflict freed all enslaved black people, and the 15th Amendment, 1870, granted black men voting rights. However, true equality remained elusive, as racial discrimination persisted until the Civil Rights Movement a century later. The war solidified the Union, abolished slavery, and reshaped America's identity at the cost of over 600,000 lives.